Welcome, Jack, and welcome back to you, Bill. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Mike.
So I wanted to talk about this very exciting addition to the Foundry's product line. So if you can, Jack, I'm just going to ask you, if I could, Bill, why it is that you guys seem persistently predisposed to going and buying technology from some major facilities around the world. Have you given up on developing stuff yourself?
No, absolutely not. We're doing lots of in-house development, and I think you know very well our research team that does awesome work, and the sort of you've seen the motion estimation, the 3D tracking, all those exciting bits of technology. But the really fascinating thing for us and going and working with post-production houses is it means we get access to software that's been production proven. It's been used in anger on films. And it just makes so much sense for a company like the Foundry to partner with people like Sony, people like Digital Domain, and people like Weta now in order to actually get this technology out of the post-production environment into customers.
Yeah, I mean, in an ultimate world, you'd want to get any new piece of software under the nose of someone like Weta to get some feedback. Here you've got the advantage of having a company that's been intrinsically involved with its development. So tell me, what is this new product for the Foundry that Weta's been using?
So it's called Mari, and it's a 3D paint product. That's probably all I need to say for now, and you need to get Jack to show you some of the details of it.
So Jack, just so we know what we're looking at, this actually isn't a sculpting package.
No, it's focused very highly on high-end texture painting requirements. It's really there to solve problems that artists have dealing with the enormous amounts of data that the sort of modern productions require.
So when we're talking about a painting package, this is like a 3D painting package in the sense that, in a simpler sense, if I had a model of a crocodile or something, my brush follows the contours of the crocodile as opposed to painting a 2D canvas.
It's really a hybrid of the two systems. It's a projection painting system where you're actually painting in two dimensions, but in real time projecting into 3D onto the surface. So that gives you a bunch of benefits in terms of avoiding artifacts on slightly strange geometries, and it also gives you some freedom in terms of editing your painting before applying it to the surface.
So one of the problems that we've had there in the past has been that in that process of projecting over the geometry itself needs to be sort of tailored quite a lot to the process. Otherwise, while it looks great in a demo, when we actually do it in the real world, we get stretching, we get textures that look terrific here but have seams there. But you've got around a lot of those problems.
We have, by basically putting a lot of freedom into the system. You're kind of free to lay out your geometry as you'd like. And there are certain requirements that geometry must have, but they're not restrictive in any way.
Are you fussy on what you can work on? I mean, can you take in FBXs and OBJ types? I mean, what is it that you can bring in? Is it have to be custom?
At the moment, we just support OBJs because it's a very standard format that everything can read and can write, and most people and companies are used to using them.
And so, Bill, let me ask you this. Is this going to be a standalone product, or is this something that I would expect to be thrown into Nuke in 6 months' time and why should I buy it now?
No, the plan is that it will always be a standalone product. Over time, bits of the technology might migrate into other products at the Foundry in the same way that bits of technology from other products might migrate into Mari. But it's very much our intention it's a standalone product.
Right, so you would see this sitting in a pipeline at what, presumably a high-end facility, or is this something you expect to have broad appeal?
Initially, the target is very much our existing customers, so high-end visual effects. But over time, as we add more features, we expect it to appeal to different segments of the sort of 3D paint market.
And Jack, at a high-end facility, it's actually not necessarily the same person that's doing the modelling and the sculpting that's actually doing the texture generation, is it?
Yeah, the actual underlying geometry tends to be handled by a separate department, a models department. The look development or texture artist department will paint displacement maps, but that isn't baked into the underlying geometry. It's more of an extra detail added on top. And we do provide functionality for previewing that data in terms of a bump map.
So just before we get started, if we use, I think, the most common paint analogy anyone knows is Photoshop. Am I painting in layers, or am I just got one image that I'm painting? And if I am painting in layers, do I also have different channels? Because obviously the key to 3D is you've got lots of different channels, especially in an open EXR environment, that are moving through with the model.
We tend to refer to the underlying data as channels. They map very closely onto the inputs on the shaders.
Right.
So you have your specular, your diffuse, your bump. We allow an almost infinite number of those. You're not restricted to only one diffuse or only one spec or only one bump. Weta often have artists with up to 25, 30, 40 channels loaded and editing at once.
Is that 30 or 40 channels of, say, like a Photoshop document, which would all be essentially going to be slammed down and exported as one? Or is it that I've got a diffuse, I've got a ambient occlusion, I've got spec, I've got a whole lot of different things in the OpenEXR sense?
It's more in the OpenEXR sense, but we do provide functionality for previewing those layered up with Photoshop-style blending modes. So you can, for example, break your diffuse channel into 3 separate channels and then effectively layer those up. And if you want to, you can then bake that down into a single channel. You can keep them separate.
Okay, and so what we're going to be looking at on here is running on what? Because, I mean, I think performance is a really key aspect, and it's almost a bit confusing because the system's so good as to what I'm actually looking at. So you're going to be looking at the painting on a texture, of a texture on a model, but in fact the model can move. Can you explain why that is?
During the development of Avatar, we found that a lot of work was involved in doing shot level fixes and tweaks. So we'd do a painting on a character in a rest pose, and then we'd put it into the shot. And occasionally, we'd see minor artifacts like stretching or whatever, and the artist would need to go in and fix that. And to be able to do that, you need to, in traditional systems, bring in the static geometry at that frame, paint it, check that it works. We decided to go the whole hog and actually allow you to bring in the full animation, multiple versions of the animation as well. And so you can paint your character and then do a visual check to make sure that it works on all of the shots it's going to appear in before it leaves your hands. I'm
actually kind of stunned at how impressive that is, because often when you're using a package like this, it's a neutral pose, and as you say, it's when the character, I mean, how often, a character standing in neutral poses on screen, so they're nearly always in motion, and then we've got seam issues and stretching and all that kind of stuff, and being able to actually look at that and move it interactively is incredible. But let me ask you this, if it's a projection-based system, do I give up, for example, clone brushes and the kind of things I might want to use to fix things?
No, we have a clone brush that works from the surface, and we have blur brushes as well, so Mari's very good at handling the transition between the surface and the paint buffer, and it's kind of transparent to the user.